guys, this is Vijay, biology lecturer from Ailebad Junior College. As you know that we have started our NEET series. In that category we are discussing about NEET biology and NEET chemistry in detail. And today we are going to discuss about unit 2 as the category of NEET biology, biological classification chapter. There are few topics we are going to discuss. Let's get started. So trichocyst, it is also one of the ectoplasmic structure can be seen in the ciliated protozoan that could help for the defense mechanism and are also helping for anchorage or sedentary mode of habitat. Okay, so these all are the major characteristic features of these ciliate or the ciliated protozoans. Now look at this picture, you can able to understand the wide range of organism present in this category in detail. Last and final category of protozoan, and that is nothing but sporozoa. Okay, so these sporozoa are also one of the category of protozoans, and this type of protozoans, the name itself explaining about how could be the organism. The organism could produces spores during the time of reproduction. So that is the reason these all organism belongs to these particular groups are called as sporozoa. Now let us talk about the characteristic features of this sporozoa in detail. So first, talking about this particular organism, mostly the sporozoa are involving for parasitic mode of life. So mostly this type of organism could be involving for parasitic mode of life, are also called as pathogenic. They could able to survive in the host organism, and that could causes the diseases for the host organism. Okay, next, talking about habitat. So as I said, the organism mostly involving for parasitic or pathogenic. That is the reason the organism could able to survive in the internal organs of the higher organisms. Okay, so the best example for this category is plasmodium. Plasmodium is the best example of this particular category. Parasitic mode of habitat could be containing its life cycle with two different hosts, like one is female Anopheles mosquito and human being. So there are two different hosts which is involving for the completing of the entire life cycle of this plasmodium. Okay, talking about this habitat. And mostly the organism comes under this category of sporozoa or pathogenic. They could able to cause diseases to the higher level organism. Next, talking about locomotion. Locomotion is nothing but movement or the motility. Yes. So the organelles of this locomotion and food capturing of food, the organelles present for locomotion, these are exclusively absent due to its parasitic life. Though it is surviving as a parasitic mode of life, they do not possess the locomotory organelles. Say for example like cilia, external apparatus like cilia or flagella. So these are the false food called pseudopodia. So these all are the external apparatus could not be seen for this particular organism, though it is surviving as a parasitic mode of life. So no cell apparatus external, no external cell apparatus or cell organelles that could help for this this locomotion. Next, talking about nutrition. Though it is showing a pathogenic mode of nutrition, that is the reason the organism could involving for heterotrophic mode of nutrition, heterotrophic mode of nutrition, or holozoic mode of nutrition, saprozoic, heterotrophic mode of nutrition or saprozoic mode of nutrition, because the organism itself surviving as a parasitic mode of habitat. That is the reason they could not develop that they could not prepare its own food, like involving for autotrophic mode of nutrition, right? So the organism involving for this heterotrophic mode of nutrition. Okay, talking about reproduction. Okay, when we are talking about this reproduction, These organism belongs to this sporozoa. Generally, they show alternation of the generation between asexual mode of reproduction and sexual mode of reproduction. Say for example, asexual mode of reproduction, they are involving for multiple fission for asexual mode, and sexual mode of reproduction, the organism could involving for syngamy or autogamy. Syngamy is similar gametes, and which is involving for the further generation. And the life cycle which is always involves for the formation of haploid cells. That is the reason these the organism, they could form a specialized stages of the cell, and these specialized stages of the organisms are called sporozoites. And these sporozoites, they are haploid cells. Okay, haploid cells. And the life cycle which shows the alternation, changes of the generation, and monogenetic or digenetic. It may be a monogenetic mode of generation or the digenetic mode of generation. And mostly, the organisms are parasitic mode of habitat. And the best example for this category of sporozoa is Plasmodium, one of the best example. And this Plasmodium involving for to continue its life cycle with two different host organisms. Say for example, female Anopheles mosquito and human being. Okay, so let us have a quick review about this sporozoa of the final category of this protozoan. Okay, so this type of organisms, the name itself saying that the organism could produces spores at the time of reproduction. Okay, and mostly the organism belongs to this category. Sporozoa or parasitic mode of organism are also called as pathogenic. They could able to cause us diseases, infection to the host organism. Best example for sporozoa, Plasmodium is one of the best example, could cause us malaria for a human being, right? So Plasmodium, which is involving for two alternative type of host for pursuing its life cycle, female Anopheles mosquito and human being. Next, talking about the habitat, mostly they are parasitic mode of organism, so they do not survive in the external environment. And locomotion, talking about, they do not have a special apparatus like cilia or flagella for the motility or the movement, though it is present in the parasitic mode of life. Nutrition, talking about the organism involving for heterotrophic mode of nutrition are saprozoic. So though they do not have plastids or the green color pigment involving for autotrophic mode of nutrition. Next, talking about reproduction, they have a complex type of reproduction, could be seen like asexual and sexual mode of reproduction. Asexual mode of reproduction involving for multiple fission, and sexual mode of reproduction involving for syngamy method. And there during its life cycle, it could able to produces a specialized stage called sporozoites, and these sporozoites are usually haploid cell in nature, and these all are the major characteristic features of this sporozoa. And look at this picture about the sporozoan organism in detail. You can able to understand. Then we will talk about in detail the malarial parasite, how it is involving its life cycle in the another video. Okay, now let us talk about some differences between the Monera and Protista. Talking about, so these are the some common difference could be seen for the category of Monera and Protista. Okay, talking about the nucleus for Monera and Protista, though the Monerians are comes under the category of prokaryotic type of organism, and these Protista involving for eukaryotic type of organism. Prokaryotic type of organism, as we know that the organism belongs to these prokaryotes, they do not have the nucleus, but they have nucleus like structure called nucleoid. They do not have well developed nuclear membrane. Yes, but talking about eukaryotes, mostly the organism includes these eukaryotes. They have a well developed nucleus and a nuclear envelope that could be seen very well. Okay, so that is a major difference between this Monera and Protista. Talking about cell size of the cell, usually the Monerians are much smaller than comparing to this Protista. Okay, so usually the cell ranges which starts from 0.1 to 5 micrometer as talking about the cell size, and Protista they starts the range from 10 to 100 micrometer. So this is the cell range, this is the size of the cellular range of this Protista, I mean the Monera and the Protista. Next, talking about cell wall, the outer layer of the living organism. Here the cell wall which is made up of, in case of this Monera, made up of peptidoglycan. Talking about Protista, the cell wall which is made up of cellulose. So these are the major difference between these two when we are talking about the cell wall. Then talking about the external apparatus. External apparatus present in, external apparatus talking about, say for example like flagella. So flagella usually absent here, but in some cases flagella could be seen, and if flagella is there, that is called unistranded, and this is multistranded or polystranded, that is polystranded or 11-stranded. Okay, next, talking about the envelope system, outer layer, envelope system. So the envelope system which is a single, when we are talking about this Monera as comparing to this Protista which is double. Then ribosomes, nature of ribosome. The nature of ribosomes which are here 70S type, that could be seen for the Monera. When we are talking about this Protista which is 70S and 80S type of ribosome, that could be seen. Next, organelle. So organelle of Monera, you see membrane bound cell organelles are absent when we are talking about this Protista, where here the organelles are absent, here the organelles are present, because that is one step ahead, well developed organism, eukaryotes. Talking about sexual mode of reproduction, usually absent here, but the organism involving for this Protista may be present for sexual mode of reproduction. Also asexual mode of reproduction can be seen. Okay, meiosis which is absent in the Monera, whereas meiosis which is present in the Protista. Meiosis is the cell division happening during the time of sexual mode of reproduction. That is the reason could be seen in the Protista. So these all are the major differences between the category of Monera kingdom and the category of Protista kingdom. So far guys, we have discussed a few topics from Unit 2 biological classification in the category of NEET biological science, and this video we will continue with one more video. Until then, thank you guys.